Hello and welcome to Rolling with Two. I'm Will, and with me as always is the one who's ready to eat retro style,
Sarah.
And today we're doing a two-player perspective and accessibility for Ginza Retro Cafe. Now if you're curious about our opinion, check out our other video, Rolling with Reviews, Ginza Retro Cafe. Sarah, tell us a bit about this game.
All right. Ginza Retro Cafe is a dice-heavy game about being waitresses in a classic Japanese cafe, working together to serve customers while competing for individual popularity. Half the game is dice management, the other half is the constant tug-of-war between cooperation and competition. If all of a customer's orders are served in time, everyone gains points based on the dishes they each served. But if a customer leaves before then, the served dishes are lost. Can you cooperate to provide ideal customer service while competing to become the most popular waitress? All right, Will, so how does the game change for two players?
Well, there is no bot for a two-player game.
No.
The number of customers that's included in any game, or going to be in any game, is going to be different for every player count.
Right.
And then specifically for two players, you'll have 4 markers for actions rather than the standard 3 for the other player counts.
Right.
Those are the changes.
Those are the changes. So issues. In a two-player count, there are only 6 customers, right, in the deck.
Yes. Yep.
For the whole game.
Yes, because you have morning, evening, or morning, afternoon, and evening.
Right.
And each subsection is based on number of players. So 2 for 2, 3 for 3, 4 for 4, right. That sort of thing. So 2 plus 2 plus 2 is 6. And when you set it up, you're putting out 3 of the customers. So half of the game is over on the initial setup.
Yeah. And a big problem with that is you don't see enough different order cards coming out, and this has to do with the goals. So you're going to have 2 goal cards that are highly specific.
Yeah. I mean, you will draft them.
Yeah.
That doesn't help you, though, because you don't have any clue as to whether or not what the goal card wants will ever come out.
Right. It's a bit too random. So the order cards are randomized too by level. So the customer says, I want a order number 1 and 2. So you draw them. Well, the order number 1 could be a coffee and rice, but you needed a soda and a pancake, for example. Okay, so you're like, well, that's just the first round. Well, as you go through the game, you could just never see a soda. Or if you need 2 sodas to fulfill your order, or your goal, sorry, you still just may not see them.
Yeah, I thought I was super clever because I got one goal that was like, here's a coffee and a sandwich, and then here's a dessert. It was like a parfait and a sandwich. And I was like, oh, great. All I need is 1 sandwich, and I'm like halfway done with both my goals. No sandwich ever showed up.
Yeah, so it's not like I even had the opportunity to steal it.
No.
So in a higher player count game, you will see more of these orders because there will be more customers. Now, granted, the flip side is you'll have more competition, but you'll actually have the opportunity to get it where you just probably won't.
Yes.
In a 2-player game.
Because this one feels like the game is failing you without you having any input into it.
Right. And you do get a significant number of points from those goal cards.
Yes.
And
you could say a winning amount of points.
Yes. So also because in a 2-player game, you only have 6 customers, 3 are out. As soon as you complete the order for 1, it gets immediately replaced. Or if you get to the end of the round, because the end of the round is everyone's used their markers, time progresses forward. Now you have 2 rounds for each person, which would seem like a lot of time, but you are spending a lot of time just manipulating your dice to meet the orders. This is again where the dice management part of the game comes in. Each of the cards is either going to want a total amount of dice, a run of dice, or the multiples of the same face dice. Mm-hmm. So you're going to be manipulating, but you can only do 1 action at a time to manipulate. So anyways, generally speaking, well, at least for our experience, a 2-player game will last 2 to 3 rounds, and that's it. And that's not a lot of time to it's not much of an experience for the gameplay, and it's not enough time to like feel like you're getting anywhere. So it just seems incredibly short.
Yes.
So one of the things we were thinking about is that there just may be too many customers, because no matter the player count, there will always be 3 customers. And I think that's an aspect that they should have reduced or increased based on the player count.
Right.
That should have also been altered, because that's kind of like an area control game where you use the same map for everybody. It's too much space in a 2-player game, and generally not enough space in a higher player count game is usually how it works out.
Right.
So
it's why when you play like hide and seek, you say, well, these are the boundaries. You don't like give people the opportunity to hide in the entire city or the entire state.
Yeah. So probably in a 2...
Otherwise, a few hours later, I get a call. Where are you? Like, I'm in the southern part of the state.
How'd you get there so fast?
I don't know, but I'm hiding, so goodbye.
So we think, but again, this would need playtesting. It would need to at least be cut down to 2 customers, because then with 2 players working on 2 customers, those orders are going to get fulfilled faster, because it's going to narrow the scope of it. But again, that's not how the game is set up, the way it is the way it's published.
Yeah, there's so many interlocking mechanisms that it might be too simple or too narrow-minded for how to actually fix the experience at a 2-player count.
Yeah, exactly. So this also brings up that there are cooperative elements to this. You're like, if I do the coffee, then he can do the sandwich, for example. We felt like in a 2-player game, we needed to talk to each other more often to cooperate to succeed. Otherwise, we were both failing. And it just felt really weird that we could just really fail both at the game, even though it's a competitive game.
Yeah, because you don't actually get the card to help score your goal.
Right.
If the customer isn't fully satisfied with everything they want.
Exactly.
And if they leave and they have one thing that they wanted that wasn't fulfilled, nobody gets those cards.
And the cards are points too themselves. So it's not just for your goal. Those cards are points. Now, when you finish an order, you do get money, which is nice, but money doesn't win you the game either.
Right.
So it had this really weird emphasis on turning the game into more cooperation, but it was just so that you would have a decent experience.
Right.
And then lastly, you have a character card that gives you a special ability. They are not all equal in difficulty or strength.
Or even written correctly.
Or even clarity. I forgot to go back on Board Game Geek to see if my question was ever answered about one of them, because its ability was conflicting. The way it was written in the description box versus the reminder text under where the token goes, they conflicted.
Yeah, because it was the dog, Wonko.
Wonko, I think.
And it has a token. And Wonko can actually make a customer stick around for longer.
Right.
Except the top part of the character card said that you can do this only once per game.
Yes.
The bottom text is like, oh, this token is returned to you and refreshed and ready to go at the end of the round.
So you're like,
if I'm doing it once per game, why do I even need, well, 1, a token, and 2, why does it refresh?
Why do I want it back? Can I do it again?
Yes.
So that's a bit frustrating, because it can severely impact the game, especially at a 2-player count. Because if you have very different levels of difficulty or strength, like one is just more obviously usable, then that could help that person. Now, granted, if you understand the game well enough, then maybe you can use it as a handicap mechanism, but I don't think it's intended to be that way.
It never feels that way.
Yeah. All right, so that's the issues. What it does well at a 2-player count, well, since there's only one other person, you can react very quickly to what they're doing. So if I can see that, Will's going for sandwiches, for example, and they're going to go for the customer that needs a sandwich, well, maybe I can do the other order, maybe it's a coffee or whatever, and then that way I can get in on the action of completing that, customer's order.
Yeah.
So you can react much better. And it's a lot faster of a game. I mean, it's only 2 to 3 rounds. It's just that
I'm not exactly sure it's great. It's just you're out of the game. That was frustrating.
it's over faster.
I guess.
I'm sorry. Okay, let's move away from the 2-player experience and on to
accessibility.
All right. So the rules are So this game was originally just printed in Japanese. And so the campaign we backed was to make it available in English. But it's still basically just a Japanese game where they added English components so that you could play it in English, which is fine. It's a way to get more customers. The thing is, they didn't change how the rule book was printed. It's also not stapled. So you have 2 sheets that are folded, but they read in the Japanese direction with the English printing. I think I took some pictures, so hopefully I put those up. So you've got it folded in such a way where you read the front page, but then the binding's on the right side, and then you have to flip it over to get to the second page.
And then you open it up?
And then you open it up, and then it's fine because then it's
not
left
even
to right.
totally Japanese. It's just...
But it was bound. Yeah, I don't know. And it's not even bound because the 2 pages are separate.
Yeah.
So it's just a little weird there. Again, I can understand if they're working with a certain printer, it was just easier not to change things.
Maybe something got lost in translation when they told the printer, well, we want to print this, opposite or different from ours. And like, okay, I could do that.
I guess. And then speaking of translations, there's a lot of weird phrasing. So I don't think this is the best translation. This is probably what they could do, but some of the concepts were really difficult to understand, again, just because things are phrased weird, and so there's just things that don't have a lot of clarity.
Yeah.
The color palette is very monochromatic. Again, I get the thematics of it, but it can be difficult to distinguish cards, especially when they don't tell you in the rules. So like those morning, day, and night cards?
Yeah, the 3 times of the day. When
Right.
you're trying to figure out which customers, because you have to stack the customers in the order where the night one's at the bottom, the afternoon one's on top of them, and the morning one's on top of them.
Well, on the face side, you really can't tell them apart other than some of them are going to have more level 1s and some are going to have more level 3s. But the back side, it's not immediate apparent. I mean, I'm probably showing a picture here now. If you look at it long enough, you can see the differences, but they don't tell you in the rule book. They don't show you in the rule book.
But morning has no flowers.
In the corners.
In the corners.
And it's a lighter color palette.
Yeah, and the afternoon has corners in 2 of the corners.
Yeah, it has flowers in 2 corners, and it's a slightly darker color.
And then finally, the evening has flowers in all 4 corners.
And is even darker color than that. So it's apparent once you see that, but when...
And know to look for it.
Yeah. So again, it was just the rules should have said and or shown that, this is day, this is afternoon, and this is night, and how to separate them. The token colors may not be colorblind friendly, but you just need markers for the order card. So if you don't like what's in the game, because they're just cubes, get something else. I think you only need 4 or 3 depending on your player count.
Yes, just make sure they don't roll around.
Yeah.
Or bounce.
Also, speaking of colorblind friendly, that may not be, is the dice. I mean, the pictures are always going to be a bit more bright and easier to distinguish than when you're actually playing on a table where your lighting may not be as bad. They are translucent, which I found some translucent dice can be better.
They also had fairly deep pip.
Yeah.
Indentations, so I could actually feel the dice.
Right, so there's some parts of it that are accessible. When it comes down to it, you only really need to know the difference between the common dice, because there's always 3 common dice, and so those need to go back to the pool. Otherwise, dice between players don't really matter as long as you get your dice back.
I think you have a max of 9 dice?
Something like that.
Per player. So if you have 6-sided dice that you prefer and have 9 copies of,
yeah, you could just use that.
That's what you'd probably go with.
Right. The money tokens are the same size, so there's 1s and 5s. They are color distinct, but not size distinct. Your bonus cards are meant to be kept secret, but since it is mostly iconography and it's color-based, that's going to be very difficult for those with severe vision issues like Will. We played them open-handed, and honestly, it didn't really come up. Even when I saw something that he had, it's almost always in your own better interest to go for what you need
Right.
than to try to deny someone else, because it's not going to give you as many points and you're not going to have a lot of opportunities to get the things you need for your goals.
Yeah, basically the only thing that's being hidden is what's frustrating that player from achieving those goals.
Yeah. Okay, I think that covers what there are issues with for accessibility, but what it does right, it is mostly open information game. So if there is something that's not clear or you need help, you can hopefully get help from someone else at the table. The categories of food, so there are 3 food types, drinks, desserts, and then
food.
main food. And there's only 2 subtypes for each. And
That's another thing I wish they actually told
right.
us.
So the downside is they don't tell you this.
Yeah, so drinks will either be a soda or a coffee.
Yes.
Desserts will either be a parfait or this pancake-looking thing that
They're
actually
called
looks
pancakes.
It looks good.
Oh yeah, they look really good.
And then the food will be either a sandwich or
a rice
bowl.
A rice dish. Of
Rice
some
dish.
Kind. Yeah,
And so
well, there was curry. But yes.
So those are the 6 icons you have to look for, and those are the 3 main categories that 2 of each icon fits under.
And the icons are distinct and they're always in the same location. I can't remember exactly which, but like coffee is in one corner and soda is in the other corner. And again, the types there are mostly differentiated by, again, a color background, which is only slightly different. But
It was something like green, red, and purple.
something like that, but they're very faded colors. But anyways, the iconography itself there was good. Again, it just didn't tell you in the rules.
Yeah.
And I appreciated that the art, being the retro style, was very clean and it doesn't get in the way of any of the functionality of the game. And I know that seems like an odd thing to point out, but there are plenty of games out there where the art covers up important things like the name of the card or an icon or something like that. And I hate to say it, but I've seen it a lot in indie games.
Yeah.
So that's why I like to point it out when it's done well.
Yeah, the worst one was probably Mr. Card Game, which is sad because I absolutely love Kingdom of Loathing, and it was this was the one time they did a card game. And if you know anything about Kingdom of Loathing, its art, they made a whole point about art doesn't need to be important to be a good game. In fact, that's why it's used as stickman for art.
It's all stick figures.
But in the card game, they obviously didn't get the memo and then put the art over.
I mean, a stick figure doesn't take up a lot of room, but somehow they made it so giant that the head would cover the name of the card, or whatever they're holding would cover icons that you needed to see. It was astounding. Anyways, that's not the game we're talking about, but that is an example of done really poorly.
And what got me is the fact that it's not even meant to be good art.
No, it's not.
It's just meant to be a functional, here's something to look at. Yeah, here's something funny to look at. And this is not that case where, yes, it's very stylish.
Oh yeah, I really love the aesthetics of this game. It's very nice.
But they made sure that it didn't distract from the functionality.
Exactly. All right, that's everything. So, conclusion.
For 2 players, would you recommend?
I really can't. I do think this game is just going to be so much better at 4 players. I'm not even sure about the experience of 3.
Yeah, the effort to play a 2-player game, you feel like you'd put in more effort just to set everything up than it actually takes time to actually play the game.
Really?
And what you do play feels frustrating because either the game is going against you because it doesn't want you to see anything that you want for your goals.
Right.
Or it's just the timing of everything is just too...
Pacing feels really weird. There's a point where it's really slow and then it speeds up and then it ends and you're like, what happened there? So unfortunately...
You got served is what happened.
You got served. For accessibility, this is going to be a real mixed bag. And I think a lot of it's going to be more on the comprehension side, but a little bit on the colorblind vision issue side.
Yeah, the biggest problem is going to be able to see the gold cards on your own.
Yeah.
That's going to be a big... I mean, that's something I couldn't do. We played it open-handed. We found like, it was...
Fine.
It was fine because there was enough other things that were upsetting us.
There was enough other things going wrong
that
that didn't matter.
At least we could be on the same page. Like, yeah, the game really doesn't like you.
I was like, Will, your sandwich never came up, did it? And he's like, nope, no, it did not.
And it's on both my gold cards.
So yeah, that's where we're at.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. And Sarah.
Yes.
Did this game at least make you hungry?
Oh gosh, yes. I mean, those sodas, I mean, I'm thinking of, our sodas are like, cola and maybe root beer and, the fizzy drinks.
Yeah, but this was a handcrafted.
Oh, handcraft. I mean, they looked almost more like ice cream thing. I mean, there was ice cream
the
too.
parfaits.
The parfaits and such. But the sodas were like, oh my God. And those pancakes. Yeah, I was hecka hungry after we played.
Me too. All right. Why would you ever roll with just one when you can be
rolling with two?
If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can reach out to us on the various social media platforms at
Rolling with Two, that's TWO. We're on Blue Sky, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Discord, we have a channel on Tabletop Express. Check the show notes for the invite link.
If you have time, check out the other content Nanaman has found for you, because remember, he's rolling with you.